Just when you think your day can't get any better, you learn that not only is Ukraine rolling back Russian territory, we have one of the most obnoxious pro-Russian shills getting served and his home searched. Is the FBI finally cracking down on one of Putin's mouthpieces? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's talk about it. Okay, so the FBI is searching the home of former UN weapons inspector Scott Ritter. And Scott Ritter is, I don't think this is exactly much of a secret, extremely pro-Russian. So much so that, again, he gave a speaking event in Chechnya to the Akhma and Chechen special forces. This was like last year, by the way. This wasn't some like 10-year-old thing. The FBI, of course, lo and behold, they have some questions when a U.S. citizen, particularly one who used to work in the intelligence field, is out there meeting with Russian dictators and is a commentator for RT and other explicitly Russian news stations. The FBI searching his home, they said, quote, in connection with a federal investigation. You could see the FBI agents here doing a search of his vehicles. Now, we can talk a little bit about who Ritter is. If this video wants to load, it's extremely boring. The FBI is doing the most FBI thing you can imagine, just sort of poking around the guy's car, randomly taking photographs. There we go. Again, having you would think that having watched a bunch of TV shows and stuff, you'd be like, oh yeah, this is the FBI should be like more with it than that, but no, probably not. They look like they're just systematically photographing everything and then digging through it. That's how they are. That this is normal especially because remember, guys, not everything is Dexter. Sometimes if there's not, if you don't think there's like a forensic level crime that took place, you're just going to take some photographs. And so this to me says that the fact they're not treating this as like that it's likely not something violent. I think it's a national security investigation. That likely Scott Ritter maybe used these cars to be in contact with someone he shouldn't have, or again may have driven and gone somewhere in facilitation of something else. It could even be just perfunctory, right? Though generally, guys, the FBI, they're not going to waste their time because somebody gave them a hot tip on the internet, right? Now, before we talk about who Scott Ritter is and why I think, again, he's not only a Russian shill, but he's also like wrong, like a lot, like an eye-popping amount. He was basically really right one time in his life and has been pretty wrong since. But first, if you need the energy, if you need to get it together, you don't need to turn to RT. You don't need to take Russian money. Instead, you could just focus on yourself and get the job done with Strike Gum. Strike Gum. It has 90 milligrams of caffeine in every single piece. This is the energy drink alternative. If you're tired of energy drinks loaded with sugar that you have to carry around, you have a stupid can. They taste like medicine. Your breath smells like medicine. Strike Gum is the superior alternative, right? Each pack contains the equivalent of 5 energy drinks worth of caffeine, but 0 sugar. No sugar crash. And we sell 5 packs, single packs if you want to try it out, or the 15-pack trays. So check it out. It's strikegum.com or on Amazon. Just go to Amazon and search Strike Gum, right? Anyway, thanks to everybody that supported us. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about who Scott Ritter is. Scott Ritter is a 63-year-old former UN's weapons inspector, as well as a Marine Corps intelligence officer and convicted child sex offender. Can't forget that one. Right? Ritter was a junior military analyst during Desert Storm, served as a member of the UN's COM overseeing the disarmament of weapons of mass destructions following Desert Storm from 91 to 98. And he ended up resigning from that role in protest, becoming a critic of the Iraq War, and getting it right when he said that the Iraq probably didn't have weapons of mass destruction. Now, he was dead right about the Iraq War, and credit where credit's due, he wasn't wrong. But here's the thing. Sometimes right? Even a broken clock is right twice a day. And being just a contrarian guy is not the same thing as having real meaningful insights, right? Again, sometimes the contrarians are right just because a lot people are wrong about stuff. I don't know what else to tell you, right? And of course, he's also been a regular commentator for Russian state media outlets like RT and Sputnik, and has visited Russia repeatedly since the start of the Russian invasion in Ukraine. And interestingly enough, in June 2024, Ritter claimed this as without evidence, but it seems like this is a pretty credible claim now, given that the FBI is searching his home. Ritter said the FBI seized his passport, preventing him from visiting Russia. Oh no. And now we probably have some idea as to why. Now here's what's most interesting, right? Yeah, okay, we can talk about him and Iraq, but as we said, his Iraq war predictions, he got it right. You know? Ritter said the United States is going to leave Iraq with its tail between its legs defeated. It is a war we cannot win. We do not have the military means to take over Baghdad, and for this reason, I believe the defeat of the United States in this war is inevitable. Every time we confront Iraqi troops, we may win some tactical battles, as we did for 10 years in Vietnam, but we will not be able to win this war, which in my opinion is already lost. Now, you may notice that's not quite what happened. U.S. military did actually take and hold Baghdad, though the insurgency that emerged was not really part of the Iraqi military. It was instead a Sunni and Shia tribal conflict, sort of inflamed by al-Qaeda. It was pretty complicated. So Ritter was like broadly correct, but not exactly spot on, right? He also called the, quote, Iraqi resistance a, quote, genuine grassroots national liberation movement. And history, quote, history will eventually depict as legitimate the efforts of the Iraqi resistance to destabilize and defeat American occupation forces and their imposed Iraqi collaborationist government. I'm here to tell you guys, if you were in Iraq during any time around this, there was not a single resistance, and most Iraqis hated every terror group or insurgent group except for the one that represented them. So Sunni Iraqis hated Shia terror groups that preyed on Sunnis and hated the government and hated al-Qaeda in Iraq and hated the United States. But they loved the Sunni terror groups and anytime a government agency was affiliated with the Sunnis. And that's how it was for everybody. So again, a little reductionist, but broadly correct. But here's where things get a little weird for poor Scott. He'd have been fine writing books about Target Iran, about the White House's plans for regime change in Iran. That was published 20 years ago. No regime change in Iran. But then, in 2001, he was the subject of a sting operation. Tried to set up a meeting with an undercover police officer posing as a 16-year-old girl. Yikes. Sorry, Scott. He was charged with a misdemeanor, right? And the charges were dismissed and records sealed after he completed 6 months of pretrial probation. Oof, man, talk about a lucky break. But of course, Scott Ritter learned no lessons, and in November 2009, communicated with another police decoy on an internet chat site. He exposed himself via webcam to the officer, who repeatedly identified himself as a 15-year-old girl. Man, remember, guys, this is the high-level intel analyst who has access to information that you and I don't, was unable to discern that, one, he perhaps should not expose himself to a child, and he was unable to discern that the, quote, 15-year-old girl was actually a middle-aged police officer. Poor Scott. Not poor Scott. Not poor Scott. Scott should probably think through his decisions quite a bit better. He actually served 1.5 years in prison, rejecting a plea bargain, and was found guilty on all but criminal contempt of court. Now, oh man, it gets even weirder. In 2009, of course, after his conviction, he lost the only regular job he had, writing analysis on world events for a private energy firm, and was reportedly heavily in debt. If you know anything about counterintelligence, you know that this is a prime recruit for a foreign entity. Why? Because they're desperate, they're broke, they're in debt, right? So, when Russia needed a shill for its invasion of Ukraine, Ritter was perfect. In fact, in 2022, he became a contributor to the Russian government-owned media outlets RT and Sputnik, as well as a gazillion others, almost anyone that will take him. And of course, he had some really, really bad takes. Well, we're going to talk about those takes in a minute, but he did, remember guys, this is a guy who in May 2023 did a book tour of Kazan, Irkutsk, and Yekaterinburg in Russia, right, for what seems like a normal history book. And of course, the whole time he's railing that Ukraine's going to lose the war. And in January of this year, actually, he visited Chechnya, addressing thousands of Chechen fighters in a central square in Grozny. BBC calling it, quote, one of the most surreal moments of the war yet. Scott Ritter turned up in Chechnya, spoke in broken Russian, which, of course, the Russian correspondent could not make out, to thousands of Kadyrov's fighters about his efforts to strengthen the friendship between Chechnya and America. And he said Russia's going to win its war. Totally going to win, guys, any second now. And then he said, of course, last month, he said, the U.S. agencies, they took my passport. They won't let me visit Russia. What he means is they won't let me flee the country. That's the catch, right? 3 CBP agents stopped him as he was about to board a flight to Istanbul. Never showed him a warrant, not required to for taking a passport. Again, it's because he was probably the target of an investigation. Now, Scott Ritter, is he right about anything? Well, let's take a look. Here is one of his columns from May 2022. So, little over 2 years ago. And as he says, Russia's military operation is entering its 4th month. This is according to a column he wrote for Consortium News. Said it's entering its 4th month, despite stiffer than expected Ukrainian resistance, bolstered by billions of dollars of Western assistance. Russia is winning on the ground and in a big way. After 90 days of incessant Ukrainian propaganda, Ukrainian armed forces, Russians are on the cusp of achieving the stated goal of its operation, which we've now moved to the liberation of Donbas republics of Lugansk and Donetsk, which Russia recognized 2 days before its invasion. And I want to point this out that it is now month 34, and boy howdy, poor Ritter. Wrong again. As you can see, Russia does not control the administrative borders of Donetsk or Luhansk provinces. Yeah. Oof. Doesn't really feel much like a cleanup. Right? Again, the March 25th, he quotes the General Staff of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation, saying that the main objective, the first phase of the operation, had been achieved. Guys, Russia didn't withdraw from Kiev. They simply achieved their goal of attriting the combat capabilities of Ukraine's armed forces. And they left only because they were tired. They were sleepy. They were sleepy boys. And taking Kiev that was never really part of the goal. They just drove straight for Kiev until taking massive publicly revealed casualties and then turned around literally 4 feet from Kiev. So, again, that was all part of the plan. Totally. Now, as they say, the history of this conflict has proven Radusky correct. No amount of Western military aid has been able to prevent Russia from achieving its military objective of, again, liberating the entire territories of Luhansk and Donetsk, something that has not happened. That has not occurred. And so, but let's see, maybe he softens his tone. Oh, in this article from July of 2022, he says, guys, the rumors that Russia needs to buy its UAVs from Iran, total nonsense. Russia can make all the UAVs it needs. It's not going to buy a bunch of Shaheds from Iran. That's crazy. Russia has better, newer drones than Iran does. Why would it need them? And yet, we all know He says, and Iran says, no, we were not selling Russia drones. That's crazy talk. We would never help any of the parties involved in this conflict. Right? So again, he's saying, oh, it's a total U.S. lie, a total nonsense that Russia's going to buy drones from Iran. And we now know, of course, that we've seen those drones. We've seen them fly. We've seen them shot down. They're Shaheds. They've been using Shaheds for months. So Scott Ritter he just likes to be contrarian. And now it seems he's so contrarian that he's caught in an FBI investigation. So, Twitter will be a slightly less insane place with him gone. But you know what? If he's arrested, hey, kids online are going to be a little safer. So that's pretty cool. I'm into that. Anyway, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Big thanks to our Colonel tier members, James Jerling, Steve Moran, Doug Beck, Alan Knutson, Bastian Himmerling, Yanko Georgiev, and all the Lieutenant tier members. Couldn't do this without you guys. I'm not a shill. I don't need to take Russia money. I don't need to take U.S. government money. I have you guys backing me up, and that makes all the difference. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.